Welcome to Intuitive Transformations with your host, Sylvia Henderson, and discover tools, wisdom, and inspiration that will empower you to transform your life. Sylvia is an intuitive life coach and energy healer with a growing practice that is focused on empowering others to be more of who they want to be. For the next hour, join Sylvia and explore and unravel anything in the way of you creating the life that you would love to live on the OMTimes Radio Network.
Valentine's Day to you and to yours. And for those of you who just happen to be single at this particular time in your life, just as I am, I want you to know that today you get to be my beloved. So I wish you, my beloved singles, a very happy Valentine's Day from my heart to yours. And regardless of if you're single or in a loving relationship, you get to choose today to use it to authentically ignite and fan the flames of your inner love for yourself and embrace and accept more of who you are on an unconditional level. Because truly, all expressions of love are an expression or an experience of self-love first and foremost. So know that you can only love and receive as much love as you are willing to give to yourself. So whether you are single or not, welcome to the Intuitive Transformations radio show, where you will find tools you can use to change and transform your life. I am Sylvia Henderson, your host, and if you would like to learn a little bit more about me, that is what I do and how to get in touch with me, then please be sure to visit my website at intuitivetransformations.net right after the conclusion of the show. And if you've been listening to my show over the past few weeks, then you already know that I'm giving away Emmanuel Dager's brand new book, Easy Breezy Prosperity, during the entire month of February. Now, this book giveaway is exclusive for my intuitive radio show listeners. Even if this is the very first time that you're tuning in right now to listen to the show, you get to participate. This offer to receive Emmanuel's brand new book is definitely available for you as well. So every week, during the rest of the month of February, I'm holding a drawing, and I'm sending out copies of Easy Breezy Prosperity to some very lucky individuals. If you would like to improve the flow of prosperity in your life and get Emmanuel's brand new book, there are two small little action steps that I need you to take. After the show, go to my website. Again, that's intuitivetransformations.net. Click on the Contact Me tab and complete and send me the form with your name, your email, and your postal mailing address, because I'll need that in order to send the book to you. Then click on the Facebook icon located at the bottom of the website, like my Facebook page, and I will put your name into a weekly drawing to win this wonderful book, Easy Breezy Prosperity. So please do take advantage of this wonderful offer, because there's only a few weeks left in the month of February, and I still have quite a few books to give away. So don't hesitate and say, oh, I never win anything. You might be the one who wins a copy of this book. And while you're visiting my website, also be sure to join in on the fun that we're having on the Energy Alchemy calls that I just started last week. Click on the Energy Alchemy button and get all the details. That'll put you right into the Eventbrite link, and it explains everything from top to bottom. So today, as I have already shared, it is Valentine's Day, and this is the day that we celebrate love and the love we have in our lives. And did you know that if you truly want to experience a beautiful, rich, and enduring love that easily goes the distance with flow and grace, that you will need to use a very powerful tool to achieve that? And that powerful tool is forgiveness. The healing energy of forgiveness is meant and designed to play an integral role in our lives, in our love relationships, and really in absolutely every relationship that we encounter in our life. So if you wish to create a life that you truly enjoy living, forgiveness is a key component. Without it, life in our relationships will not really provide us the expansive joy that we truly desire. So, to talk a little bit more about the power of forgiveness and the important role that it really must play in our lives, I have someone joining us who has literally written the book on this subject. Her name is Joan Gattuso, and she is the author of The Power of Forgiveness, Forgiving as a Path to Freedom, which is an invaluable guidebook for anyone seeking to break free from the oppression of resentment and embrace a more joyful life. Joan is a well-known Unity minister who has studied with His Holiness, the Dalai Lama, and has authored 3 other popular books that have been translated into several languages. Those books include A Course in Love, A Course in Life, and The Lotus Still Blooms. Joan lives in the beautiful state of Hawaii with her husband, David Alexander. Joan Gattuso, thank you for joining us today on Valentine's Day, and welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, Sylvia. It is truly my delight to be with you on this beautiful and most significant day. And Valentine's Day, as you already stated so eloquently, can be a holy day for each one of us, whether we are in partnership or not. We are always in partnership with our inner being. So thank you for that intro. I'm happy to be here today.
Well, I am certainly happy to have you here. So, Joan, let's just start with the basics, shall we? Can you explain to those who are listening what true, authentic forgiveness is from your point of view?
Forgiveness, first I'll say, it came out of my years of being a student of the Course in Miracles, and I understand you are as well, Sylvia.
I am.
And in the Course, it says, forgiveness offers everything I want. Well, years ago, I wanted a holy relationship. I wanted to meet and live with my soulmate. I wanted to be free from the pain of the past. I wanted to have a healthy body. I had many physical ailments that I wished to be healed from those. And it said forgiveness offers everything. Well, these are the everythings that I wanted. So I began to work on forgiveness, and I had plenty of opportunity to do so because I had had some very painful history in my young adult life. And so I knew that I didn't need to banish my former husband to some terrible realm of existence. I needed to forgive him. And so I set a course to forgive what had been a very painful relationship. Should I tell you a little more about that?
Please do. Yes, absolutely.
So this is what happened. I was already a Unity minister, but I was still most often asleep rather than awake because I thought he held my good. I thought he would take care of me. I thought he would provide for me. I thought he would offer me security and comfort and eternal love. Well, guess what, Sylvia? He didn't want to share it. He didn't want to share it at all. Matter of fact, it went so far as that he used to give me a bill every month as to what my gasoline credit charges would be, what my share of the groceries would be, any other expenses, what my portion would be. And I thought, well, this isn't what I signed up for. And as the years went by, I didn't stay with him very long. We were totally married 6.5 years, but I probably was not with him 4 of those years. I would go and live with my parents. I would go and live with my brother. I frequently left him because he became violent. And it got so severe one night when he, tried to strangle me to death that I said, this is not the life God would have me lead. This is not the life. And so I left for one final last time. And rather than hating him, I set a course to forgive him. And the exercise that I worked with, that I put in the power of forgiveness, was that I would take a legal pad and I would write. And I do best with forgiveness techniques where it's called upon to write, I guess because I am a writer, but I would write. I always call him LG when I speak about him in public. And his last name, my last name is Gattuso. That wasn't his name. That was his middle name. I would put LG, and then I would put, I forgive you for, not just for being a son of a gun. I forgive you for the times you took my keys on Sunday morning and held hid them when I had to drive 45 miles to go to church and do the church services. I forgive you for that. I mean, I'd almost have cardiac arrest. I forgive you for lying to me about having girlfriends. I forgive you for giving me my bills every month for what I owed in my portion of the household expenses. In each statement I wrote, I forgive you for, before I put down the statement. And I would write for, depending, 15 minutes, 30 minutes. And then I would take that list, and Sylvia, I would burn it. Not burning being a sign of magic, but burning being symbolic of it just becoming ash, just dissolving into nothing.
Releasing it, really, right?
Say that again, please.
You were really just releasing it.
Absolutely releasing it. And then I would go sit down and meditate for 10 or 15 minutes, breathing light in, breathing the trauma out, breathing the light of spirit in, breathing light out. I would do that for 10, 15 minutes. And then I would get up and go about my day, and I would think about that situation less and less. So I say, if you do this exercise, do it 3 times a week. Do not do it 7 times a week. It brings up too much toxic energy. Your life will just be chaotic, and you go, oh my gosh, I listened to this woman, I did her exercise, and everything is worse. No, 3 times a week is plenty. But Sylvia, do you know how long I did this exercise until I felt absolutely free from his energy? He was no longer woven through my psyche at all any longer.
I'm curious.
5 years.
Wow.
5 years, every week. I'm very faithful in my spiritual practices. I did it 5 years every week. And then I knew I was done. I was absolutely positively done. I had no grievances towards him whatsoever. None. And I was free to go on with my life and create the kind of loving relationship that I knew in my heart was possible.
Beautiful.
And so I set a course to do that.
Beautiful. Joan, can you please stay with us for just a moment? We're going into a break, and when we return, we'll continue this conversation on forgiveness.
Absolutely.
The cutting edge of conscious radio. OMTimes Radio. IOM FM.
Do you want to be a better communicator? Do you want to better connect with the important people in your life? Do you want to enrich your relationships? If so, join me, Matthew Cooper, on the Positive Control System Show every Wednesday evening at 11 o'clock p.m. Eastern Standard Time on OMTimes Radio. I'll meet you there.
Meet me in the marvelous St. Martin for an evolution into self-love and soulful living. Hi, I'm Bernadette Davies, founder of Agape Holistic Retreat in St. Martin and around the globe. We're an all-inclusive retreat in St. Martin and private retreats and around the globe. It's magical. www.agapeholisticretreatsxm.com. Attunement, enhancement, alignment. www.agapeholisticretreatsxm.com. Meet you in St. Martin.
Join Elliot Jollish, the business therapist, each Tuesday at 5 p.m. Eastern for the Elliot Jollish Hour, as he interviews business experts on your behalf. And you're invited to email your business questions to questions@ecjgroup.com for answers, live, on air every Tuesday at 5 p.m. Eastern on the Elliot Jollish Hour. The number one reason girls drop out of school in sub-Saharan Africa is lack of access to feminine hygiene products. The Pads for Schoolgirls Project, an outreach of Humanity Healing International, is changing this paradigm by setting up sewing programs at schools, teaching girls a vocational skill, while producing the reusable pads that help keep them attending classes. The girls pay it forward by making and giving pad kits to other girls in need. To learn more, visit humanityhealing.org. Humanity Healing is where your heart is. Free your mind with OMTimes Radio. IOM FM.
we went into the break, Joan was sharing her own personal experience and journey of forgiveness of her ex-husband, and how it took 5 years of doing a weekly spiritual practice in order for her to completely move and release that. So, Joan, my question for you is, why is it so difficult for us to step into forgiveness? I mean, there are people that will hold a grudge over a parking space, let alone something that we consider to be unforgivable. Why is it that our human psyche clings so much to unforgiveness and choose that form of imprisonment?
It is the ego part of us, I believe, Sylvia. It is our ego that does not want us to be happy. So our ego keeps us in hell, and a way to be assured that we stay in hell is to hold on to our grievances and to be unwilling to forgive them. But, we don't hurt the other person by being unforgiving. We're constantly hurting ourselves. Mm-hmm. Forgiveness is a gift we give to ourselves. So if a listener right now is saying, well, you don't know my story, I know a story darn similar to yours. And forgiveness is the way for you to get out of your personal hell. He doesn't deserve forgiveness. Well, you do forgive yourself, and you deserve your forgiveness, and you will have a future different from the past. You don't forgive that person, you're going to keep recreating that hell and attracting more people just like the one you haven't forgiven. That's a real key, Sylvia, is that we attract that which we don't forgive. We attract it back into our lives again.
Right, because what you did when you were burning the note on a regular basis, where you were releasing it, you were doing kind of a physical act of release. And so when we hold on to that energy, it doesn't leave us. It stays in there. And like you said, it keeps showing up, just maybe in a different form.
It does keep showing up, yes. And the name and the coloration of a person may be different, but it's the same individual. It's the same character coming back into our lives again, because that energy has haunted us on the inside. And so we create once again a physical manifestation of that type of personality.
So what are the gifts that forgiveness brings into our lives?
Oh, that's such a great question, Sylvia. It's such a great question. So it's Valentine's Day. What are the gifts forgiveness brings? Forgiveness brings love. Forgiveness brings freedom. Forgiveness brings happiness and joy. Forgiveness brings a peaceful, restful mind. Forgiveness brings freedom from anxiety. Forgiveness brings greater health of body. Forgiveness, I've heard about your giving away a prosperity book. Forgiveness definitely brings prosperity. A friend of mine who's a great prosperity teacher, Edwin Gaines, says you don't have a prosperity problem, you have a forgiveness problem. Forgiveness does bring prosperity. I mean, Sylvia, my husband and I are living here on the beautiful, idyllic island of Molokai after I retired from 34 years of pulpit ministry without retirement. That's another show we could do. But we're living here, and somehow by the grace of God and our prosperity consciousness, it works every month. And as I always say, we haven't had that popcorn for dinner yet. Matter of fact, because it's Valentine's Day, we're having lobster tails for dinner tonight. So forgiveness offers us prosperity, peace of mind, a happy heart, harmonious relationships. I don't know. Did I miss anything?
You've covered you did a wide sweep there. I feel pretty good about that. There's definitely some huge benefits to forgiveness versus holding on to that unforgiveness, which, creates just so much bitterness and contraction in our lives.
It takes so much energy to keep it alive. I mean, I have certainly worked with people through the years that they have been in pain and anguish. And I say, well, how long ago did this situation occur? Oh, it was 16 years ago. And I'm going, you've kept yourself in hell for 16 years? And yes, we keep ourselves in hell for 6 years, 6 months, 16 years, whatever.
Or longer.
And learn to let it go.
Why is that? But again, it's interesting because do you think that people are really choosing to suffer, or is it they're just don't know how to do it. I mean, as little ones, we're taught, say you're sorry to Sally. Sally, he said he's sorry. Please forgive Joey for pulling your hair. And is that really true forgiveness?
No, no, those are just words to children. No, that is true forgiveness is when something has wounded our psyche, and we have to find techniques, again, which I give many positive techniques in the power of forgiveness. We have to find techniques to work with. We don't forgive somebody because we say, oh, I heard this woman talking with Sylvia on the radio, and she said, I have to forgive you, you son of a gun, so I'm forgiving you now once and for all. Well, nothing's going to change. We need to do some forgiveness work, some meditations, some visualizations, some active writing, some prayerful soul work to shift that energy, because it is an energy. It is an energy of negativity that we have allowed to set up housekeeping inside of our psyche.
Yes, I do agree. And, one of the stories you have in your book, because you're talking about, oh, I listened to the radio and I'm supposed to forgive you. One of the stories that you talk about in your book is the woman who looked at God sort of as a fairy godmother or Santa Claus. And she was doing these actions thinking that it would create an appeasement between her and God, where God would then somehow bless her. And that's coming from forgiveness from a wrong point of view.
Right. This person, everybody I write about in Power of Forgiveness is somebody that I actually know, that if I didn't know them personally, I interviewed them. But that person, she and I have been friends since I was 7 and she was 4. Okay. I know her well. And she does think of God, unfortunately, even still, as a fairy godmother. And so she was very annoyed with God because she had done spiritual practices for 1 year. She hadn't gossiped. She had tithed to her church. She had been generous with people. She had worked to be less judgmental. She did it for 1 year, and by God, her life wasn't any better. So she was mad at God, and she was going to stop doing those things. And I was going, wait a minute. I've done these things for 40 years, and I didn't expect, a blue ribbon at the county fair. I did these things because it was a way to live life as a conscious person. She's better now, I have to say, because I know her so well. She's much better now, but man, she was so angry with God. Like we have these formulas, but they're not magic formulas. They're spiritual formulas. And so we have to work them. And in time, they will reap back into our lives the good we desire. But it isn't like making a cake or something. You do it and you put it in the oven and it comes out.
And you get consistent results. Well, because what you're saying too is when you were talking about forgiveness, you don't want someone to misread. You just do these steps. And I think that's why I referred to her, is that because I do believe that when you're struggling in prosperity, you're probably struggling with forgiveness in some area of your life. But, just going, you're going through forgiveness, not so that you can get, it's really just so you can be free.
Absolutely. It does. It frees us out. It frees us up. It is a path to freedom.
Yeah. And that's really when you get to step into that personal power. You get a chance to really be you in all circumstances and situations. You're not triggered by someone or something anymore.
Right. Nobody else then has a hold on your peace of mind, on your well-being. See, when I hadn't forgiven my ex-husband and when I was still with him and going back and forth, he was controlling my life and I was letting him. So Sylvia, an important addendum to that story is I had to forgive myself. I had to forgive myself because he did not kidnap me. He did not keep me chained to a post in the basement. I willingly went into that relationship and I stayed for the periods of time that I stayed. And so I had to forgive myself. I had to forgive myself for thinking that a man was going to take care of me.
I love that you're pointing to the importance of self-forgiveness, because that is the piece that doesn't get taught in grade school. We're taught that someone must be to blame, and this is playing out on a very large scale, especially in the American political system right now. And so there's always someone has to be at fault. But when you can allow yourself to forgive that person and to forgive yourself as well, you realize there is no one to blame.
Sylvia, I am so glad you're bringing this up. You're the only person other than me that I've ever heard address it in this manner. In our government, in our society in America, we are always looking for somebody to blame, aren't we? We're always saying, well, whose fault is it? Mm-hmm. Well, if we know whose fault it is, it doesn't make the problem go away. I rather think whose responsibility is it rather than whose fault, not right. Who's to blame. What's the underlying current that's going on here? But yes, our country is a great perpetrator of that mistaken notion. But, we can't, I don't know about you, but I can't heal our country. I've tried, and I haven't been real successful. I work to heal my perception of our country, my perception of our politics. And I also watch very little, just enough so that I'm not ignorant of what's going on. But I don't watch every single thing that's going on politically because it is toxic.
It's very toxic.
It is just toxic.
It really is. And to me, it is a very vibrant representation of how much unforgiveness is right now within this country.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So, we can't say, well, those people, those politicos, they need to forgive. No, we need to forgive. We need to shift our energy, and hopefully in time, their energy will soften somewhat. Well, or they'll drop out of the race.
Well, and it's like the Course in Miracles. It's an individual course, and that's one of the edicts that it teaches. And so is forgiveness. It's as we each really embody and practice forgiveness on a regular basis, forgiving our lives, those people in our lives, then our energy changes, our representation of our world changes. That also creates change within the world. So when we return, we're going to continue this conversation on the power of forgiveness. Please stay tuned, and we'll be back with more.
The best of holistic, spiritual, and conscious world. OMTimes Radio. IOM FM.
Hello, I'm Sandy Sedgbeer, host of the Inspired Parenting radio show, where every week we bring you empowering information from the diverse fields of conscious parenting, education, neuroscience, consciousness, health, and metaphysics to support you in nurturing the best in your children. So if you're interested in understanding what shapes your children's minds, spirits, and hearts, join me every Thursday at 4 p.m. Pacific Time, 7 p.m. Eastern Time, and prepare to be inspired.
Meet me in the marvelous St. Martin for an evolution into self-love and soulful living. Hi, I'm Bernadette Davies, founder of Agape Holistic Retreat in St. Martin and around the globe. We're an all-inclusive retreat in St. Martin and private retreats and around the globe. It's magical. www.agapeholisticretreatsxm.com. Attunement, enhancement, alignment. www.agapeholisticretreatsxm.com. Meet you in St. Martin.
Hi, this is Angela Levesque, host of Entanglement Radio. Join me Wednesdays at 12 p.m. Eastern for inspiring conversations with visionaries in spiritual science and conscious healing. Entanglement Radio, Wednesdays at 12 p.m. Eastern. Transcendent talk for the conscious mind.
Have you ever wondered how to change your love paradigm? The secret key is finding a love partnership, not just a regular connection. How do you find these? Through conscious relationships. Ascending Hearts Dating is a dating site for people like you that believes in second chances and a different type of spiritual connection. Try Ascending Hearts for free today at ascendinghearts.com and change your love paradigm. Ascending Hearts, the premier dating community for the spiritually awake. Bringing a more conscious lifestyle to your world. OMTimes Radio. IOM FM.
With Joan Gattuso, and we're talking about her brand new book that just came out. It's called The Power of Forgiveness, Forgiving as a Path to Freedom. And Joan, there's a lot of confusion in the world about God as source, and you've written an entire chapter on this topic. What do you suggest that we do when we feel separated from that truth that God is our source, and how can we heal that through the power of forgiveness?
Again, you asked me such wonderful questions, Sylvia. To know that God is our source takes conscious focus on the divine, to sit in meditation, to have affirmations that we affirm in the silence, to just visualize in our hearts that God is there. An affirmation that my husband and I work with, that we were taught by one of our early spiritual teachers, is to affirm countless times a day, I love you, God. I love you, God. I love you, God. I love you, God. Until you feel it, so that you feel the energy of the divine in your heart. You feel it in your mind. It is present in your thoughts as you think about other people or situations in the world, that you have more gentle thoughts about other people, even politicians, Sylvia. Mm-hmm. And so we develop a relationship with God, and then we know that God is the source of all of our good. God is the source of all of our blessings. You know, Sylvia, in my own life, I feel very blessed. I came in, reincarnation or not, I came in with a great love for God. I was a very devout little girl. I used to go to Mass every single day, which was not a requirement in grammar school. I went to Mass every day from the time I was in grammar school till I was 22. Mm-hmm. And then I left the Catholic Church then. But I didn't leave without fully indoctrinating myself in the religion of my childhood. And so I had a great faith in God. You know, I love to quote my mom. I think about my parents every day. They say, oh, you'll know you're healed when you know about a beloved one who's died when you don't think about them. Well, Sylvia, I haven't found that yet. So I think about my beloved parents every day, but my mother actually came into Unity a short time before I did, mm-hmm. which was always our family joke. But she used to say that when she was in her religion of her childhood, the same as mine, that she had faith. When she came into Unity, Unity taught her how to use her faith, what to do with her faith. And I always loved her description, her definition of what happened to her, that she learned how to use her faith. So I too have learned how to use my faith. Faith isn't something, it's not a commodity we go out and get, but it's something we all have. But do we have faith in life always working out for us? Or do we have faith in the negative? Do we have faith that people are trying to hurt us and do us wrong, and people are always going to be cheating us? Where do we place our faith? We have faith. We don't have to get faith. We have it, but where do we place it?
It's a two-edged sword.
I place my faith on the good. I place my faith in God. I place my faith in things always working out, always. And, you know, Sylvia, they do, because that is my expectation. That is my knowing.
And I think that's part of the gift of forgiveness, because I think if you're harboring unforgiveness, it's impossible to come from that place and position of power that you're speaking of.
Absolutely, because that occupies our consciousness all the time. It is just filling our minds all the time, and harboring resentment and hurt from the past only keeps us living in that hell, and forgiveness frees us from that hell.
It really does. So what about someone who's grown up in a home where they've been highly criticized, or maybe even experienced abuse, and as a result of their past experiences as a young child or adolescent, or whenever this may have happened, or for whatever the duration, maybe they've developed what we call a victimhood mentality. And how can using your book, The Power of Forgiveness, help someone like that move from victimhood to release and truly forgive themselves as well as whoever was the abuser or criticizer, so that they can move into their personal power?
Thank you again for such a great question, because I have worked with so many people that have lived in victimhood, and some never leave it, Sylvia, and that's very sad. They never leave it. But others have become the victor of their lives. They have become the heroes, the sheroes of their lives. But through work, through doing these spiritual techniques that I teach in The Power of Forgiveness, they have come out of their pain. So many people have been, and because I work mostly with women in this area, but it's men as well, but so many women, I'll say, have been sexually abused. It's just horrific. It really is. It's a huge problem here. And so we have to encourage those people and love them and support them and let them cry and rant and rave and carry on and get to a place where the energy is beginning to shift so that they can have freedom, so that they don't live in that victim mentality. Because when we live in victim mentality, we're always expecting somebody, the next person we meet around the corner, to hurt us. And we're seldom disappointed. The next person we meet does hurt us because that's our expectation. But we can become the victor of our own lives. I think one of the most dynamic stories I tell about this is, I believe it's early in the Forgiveness, the story about Marcia, who was a member of my congregation. She had been in a relationship with this man. I say they're both social workers. He was a social worker. He didn't live under a bridge in Cleveland, where I'm from. He was a social worker. And she broke up with him for a variety of reasons. And a year later, he showed up at her front door and he shot her right in the face. Not from a distance, up close. He shot her in the face. Fortunately, she was on, the only fortune in this horrific situation was that she was on the phone with her best friend, Cheryl. And Cheryl didn't know what happened, but she knew something horrific had happened, and she called the police. And this man was just about to roll Marcia over and shoot her again in the front part of her body when a repairman who had been at the back of the house obviously heard the shot, came running, and this guy ran out the front door and ran through the neighborhood, and he was apprehended a little while later. But Marcia, she was left for dead. She went to a trauma hospital in Cleveland, and she was in intensive care for weeks on weeks. And I tell the whole story in The Power of Forgiveness, but this is one part that's a little cute about this whole horrible story, which she and I call 3 weeks at a Chinese restaurant. And the reason it's called 3 weeks at a Chinese restaurant, that when she was unconscious, she thought when she was in intensive care that she was at a Chinese restaurant. And you know how it is in a hospital, they pull a curtain around the patient's bed.
Yes.
Well, she thought that the movement she saw on the other side of the curtain would be the chef and the sous chef and the waiters coming to get the food and coming back and forth and in and out. She thought it was a Chinese restaurant, and that she lying on the bed in the hospital was that she was lying on a dining table in the restaurant. We call that 3 weeks in a Chinese restaurant. After those 3 weeks, the doctors had determined that Marcia was brain dead. There was no way she could ever come back. She could never have quality of life again. And they were going to pull the plug. And her friend Cheryl, again, was right there. And Cheryl saw a little tear starting to roll down from Marcia's eye, down her cheek. And she says, we can't do this. She knows what we're about to do. She can hear us. And so, of course, that was aborted. And they did not pull the plug on Marcia, but she began from that point on to recover very quickly, so that in a couple weeks after that, she actually went into a regular hospital room on a nursing floor. Mm-hmm. And after several weeks there, she went into rehab for quite some time. Now, Marcia, she lost the vision in the eye where I think it was her right side where she was hit. She lost her hearing in her right side. But other than that, I mean, if you were a very observant person, you could see that there was a little mark where this bullet had gone in. You could see that. But you'd have to be very observant to notice that. She's a very attractive woman. And I will tease her. She always dresses every Sunday she would dress like she was the mother of the groom and going to the wedding. She was always decked out to the nines. Everything was coordinated. And she still dresses like that. She is a social worker. She has gotten her PhD. She has gone on with her life. And during the holidays, these past holidays, she did get married. And she's just so happily married to a man who just treats her like the treasure of God that she is. So I write about her in The Power of Forgiveness. And she worked a long time to forgive this guy who shot her, as you can only well imagine.
Oh, I can't even imagine.
And the thing is about him, he was a personal trainer, and he was the personal trainer to many women that I knew. They couldn't believe it. A very active congregant who was also a social worker, but a much older person. She shared an office with him.
Wow.
She said, I can't believe he did this. He gave no signs of pathology. Is that the right word?
Yeah.
He gave no signs of that. He didn't behave in public like a crazy person, but he certainly did with Marcia. So of course he was incarcerated.
Wow. And none of that improvement would have happened had she not stepped into forgiveness.
Oh, she says it's been a gift of her life. It's been a gift of her lifetime because she had to forgive if she wanted to have a future different from her past. And she certainly wanted that. And
forgiveness is not about rationalizing why it happened and trying to figure it out like the ego wants to do. It truly is releasing and letting it go.
Right. That's such a valid point. The ego wants to know, like we said earlier, who's to blame? Okay, we know who's to blame. Now let's move on from that.
Or at least let me make sense of it.
and what I've taught for many years, Sylvia, is you can't make sense out of insanity. You cannot make sense out of it.
I agree. Well, I know we're going to be going into a break very soon. And when we return, Joan, I would love to have you tell people how they can get into contact with you and also to have you talk about Ho'oponopono.
Okay.
So we'll be back in just a few moments. Please stay tuned. You're listening to Intuitive Radio on OMTimes.
The future of Internet radio is here. OMTimes Radio. IOM FM.
This is Terry Van Horn, and I want to invite you to join me for my weekly radio show, Hailing Light, on OMTimes Radio every Wednesday at 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. On Hailing Light, we want to bring love, light, and blessings into your world. You can find out more about us at www.healinglightonline.com. Blessings.
Meet me in the marvelous St. Martin for an evolution into self-love and soulful living. Hi, I'm Bernadette Davies, founder of Agape Holistic Retreat in St. Martin and around the globe. We're an all-inclusive retreat in St. Martin and private retreats and around the globe. It's magical. www.agapeholisticretreatsxm.com. Attunement, enhancement, alignment. www.agapeholisticretreatsxm.com. Meet you in St. Martin.
Join Elliot Jolish, the business therapist, each Tuesday at 5 p.m. Eastern for the Elliot Jolish Hour, as he interviews business experts on your behalf. And you're invited to email your business questions to questions@ecjgroup.com for answers, live, on air every Tuesday at 5 p.m. Eastern on the Elliot Jolish Hour. OMTimes Magazine is one of the leading online content providers of positivity, wellness, and personal empowerment. A philanthropic organization, their net proceeds are funneled to support worldwide charity initiatives via Humanity Healing International. Through their commitment to creating community and providing conscious content, they aspire to uplift humanity on a global scale. OMTimes, co-creating a more conscious lifestyle. Bringing you the best of the conscious minds in the world. OMTimes Radio, your conscious lifestyle on steroids.
Her brand new book, The Power of Forgiveness, Forgiving as a Path to Freedom. And Joan, I'm sure that people can get your book on Amazon.com and most bookstores and Barnes and Noble. Do you also offer this on your website someplace?
I suggest that people go to Amazon just because in the book business, which is highly competitive, I have learned, this being my fourth book, that if people buy books on Amazon, it helps my numbers. And the publisher is always looking at, where are the numbers today? Where are the numbers tomorrow? And so Amazon is a helpful place to go to. And they offer a tiny little discount. So The Power of Forgiveness, and my last name is spelled Gattuso, Gattuso.
Beautiful.
Also, my website is lovehelpfromjoan.com. All one word, lovehelpfromjoan.com.
I love that. That's wonderful. Lovehelpfromjoan.com. And we definitely want your numbers to increase because we want to hear more from you. If this is how you write, I'm very happy that this is getting out to the world. We need to focus on forgiveness.
Thank you. You know, my first book, which I always say is like my first child that took me 20 years to conceive and deliver, my first book, A Course in Love, really deals with what we're dealing with today on Valentine's Day, finding true and lasting holy love. So if somebody's looking for a soulmate, I really suggest they check out that book too, A Course in Love. The second book is taking 12 universal spiritual principles. The way I succinctly describe it, Sylvia, is Dick and Jane Get It. I don't know if you ever had Dick and Jane.
Yes, I did.
Did you?
I did. Okay. I was born in 57. Yes, I did.
Our audience today did not, but most people have heard of Dick and Jane. So it's like Dick and Jane wake up. Dick and Jane realize their spiritual nature. And then I've studied with the Dalai Lama since 1991. And that book is called The Lotus Still Blooms. It is a visually beautiful book. It is a beautiful book with a message inside. And I take the universal Buddhist principles, which are not so easy for the Western mind to grasp and understand and digest. And what I'm known for is teaching in a way that people can assimilate into their own lives. So that's The Lotus Still Blooms. So thank you for that. I will say, to toot my own horn, that The Power of Forgiveness was named one of the top 5 spiritual books for 2016 by the magazine Spirituality and Health. And I was absolutely thrilled with that one of the top 5 spiritual books of this year.
Wow. And it certainly does deserve that, because forgiveness, this is what we need, everyone. This is why our world is in such disarray. And, you may not be able to be an activist and do some kind of an elicit change and affect change that way in the world. I really don't even know if that works anymore. I think really just focusing on that self-forgiveness and forgiving others in your life and forgiving the circumstances and the situations that you are witnessing, because it's about letting go of our judgments. Our judgments lock so much of the unfortunate circumstances in place.
Excuse me, absolutely.
And so, Joan, can you talk a little bit about Ho'oponopono? And I know I've heard of it for years, and I've practiced it, and I've even been on a conference with Dr. Hugh Lin. But there are people who, yeah, I have, and I don't know though that everyone listening knows what Ho'oponopono is. And here you are in Hawaii, so I'm sure everybody there knows. But
well, Ho'oponopono, obviously, it is a Hawaiian word. It is an ancient Hawaiian healing technique, and initially it was done in the family unit. where if there was someone who was separated from the family, the rest of the members of the family got together and they would bring this person in and they would say, we need to do Ho'oponopono together to heal this rift in our family, because we cannot be a family with one of our members apart from us. So this is what I'm so impressed that you were with Dr. Hugh Lin. I've encountered so many of the major players on the planet, but I have never encountered him. A little background: he is a psychiatrist who went to a hospital here in Honolulu that was for the criminally insane. They were incarcerated forever with no hope of release. And he took this on, and he went and he would see these patients one at a time, and he would do the Ho'oponopono practice with them. And he never did talk therapy. They would come in to meet with him and he would sit in meditation and do this technique. They must have thought he was as crazy as they were. But this is what, and it sounds outrageous, so just be with me. I'll go through all the 4 affirmations and then I'll elaborate. The first one is, you say to the person, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Then, please forgive me. I love you. Thank you. Now, I know this sounds outrageous, but it works. It is saying to the person, say somebody has really hurt you. Let's say a sibling. The only people that can really hurt us are the people that are close to us.
Yes.
The checkout gal at the grocery store is not the person you need to do Ho'oponopono on. It's your brother.
Mm-hmm.
And you say, I'm sorry you had to take on this role in the family. I'm sorry this was your designated position in the family. I'm sorry. Please forgive me for thinking so ill of you. Please forgive me for not having love in my heart for you anymore, for not wishing you good and happiness. Please forgive me for being so judgmental towards you. And then we get down to the deeper truths and say, I love you. The truth of our relationship is, I love you. I love you. Know that you are a person that is loved by me. And then we say in conclusion, thank you. Thank you for accepting my love. Thank you for accepting this forgiveness and knowing that we can have a different future together. So it's, I'm sorry, please forgive me. I love you. Thank you. It is I looked it up. It's chapter 7 in The Power of Forgiveness. It's in chapter 7, and I explain it in more detail, but it's definitely something to check out, and it works. Sylvia, before we ring off, there's something I want to say.
Yes.
And that is that no matter how difficult the situation is, you're called upon to forgive it. It doesn't mean the person is going to accept your love and your forgiveness and want to have a relationship with you again soon or ever. Mm-hmm. And that's difficult for many of us on a spiritual path to realize. But the Dalai Lama says, we do this work not to change the other person, but to change ourselves. Mm-hmm. And you do this work and it will change you. But don't we wish it would always change the other person? Of course we do. But it doesn't always change the other person. And if they've hated you and been mean and nasty and disgusting with you, they may still be hateful and mean and nasty and disgusting, but you don't let it into your psyche anymore. You just don't, because you've forgiven that person. So I share that with you.
I appreciate you pointing that out, because really it's about, again, letting yourself out of that internal prison, because every time you think of someone that you haven't forgiven, encounter them, have to see them, there is a physiological thing that goes on in your body and even in your emotional state that is limiting you to be authentically who you really are, which is love. And when you can truly forgive someone, doesn't necessarily, like Joan was saying, change their behavior, but it changes your behavior.
Right. Absolutely. So we keep doing the work. We just keep doing the work.
Because there's nothing more joyful than freedom.
And remember, forgiveness does offer you everything you want. It does offer you, as you just said, Sylvia, your freedom and your happiness.
That is huge. That is huge. Now, I know on the one practice that you did with your ex-husband, you said just do it once a week, because if you do it more often, then too many toxins will come up.
No,
But
three times a week, Sylvia. 3 times a week.
Oh, 3 times a week. I
Not
apologize.
7, 3. Okay.
Yeah. But is it possible to just doing Ho'oponopono, you can do that on a daily practice.
Yes.
You can
Yes.
clean on everything that happens.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely.
Beautiful. So, is there anything else that you really want those who are listening to know and understand about the power of forgiveness that we have not yet covered?
I guess in conclusion, the thing to say to people is that no matter how deep your hurt has been, it can be forgiven. And you do not have to live in this pain forever. You are not deemed to suffer forever. That forgiveness is a path to freedom. Forgiveness will lead you out of it. And forgiveness doesn't come because you say, I forgive you, you son of a gun. I forgive you, you bastard. Forgiveness comes because you do these written exercises, you do these visualizations, you do these meditations, you do Ho'oponopono, and you begin to create a different future. And that is freedom. That is happiness. That is joy. That is bliss. We can live a blissful life because I'm here to tell you, I live a darn blissful life here in paradise. And our dreams can come true.
Well, it sure sounds like it. I mean, and just to remind everyone, because I love how Joan said, you will create a different future. You need to know that you are here not to fix your life. You're here to create your life. And using these exercises, learning more about forgiveness, and implementing this in your life wherever there has been resistance or unforgiveness or blame or guilt is a wonderful way for you to create a brand new reality and a life that you truly would enjoy living. Thank you, everyone, for listening. Until next week, I'll be back then. I'm signing off. Love to you. Bye-bye.
Thank you so much, Sylvia. Much love. God bless.
Thank you, Joan. You've been a wonderful guest.
Thank you.
Goodbye.